I'm mixing it up a little. So I noticed right now in my palette, I have about 22 different colors. I don't use them all. I like a smaller palette, not because I like to spend hours mixing colors and then not mixing enough and having to go back and mix more and then it can't match it quite right and then I mix too much and now it just sits there. Not like that. I just mean I like to use fewer colors just so that the palette itself is more harmonious and doesn't kind of bleed into every area. And a lot of times you have one color, you have like a base for the color, you can just add a little bit of blue, a little bit of yellow, and change that green. It's not a big deal. And then all the greens kind of have the same foundation, so they look a little bit better. They work a little bit better together. So that's the kind of thing I like to do. So what I did was I condensed my palette a little bit. I'll show you, this is what I used to use. Alright, so I don't change my colors very often, but when I do, I just change something very small. So here you see I have the yellows, I have the red and the orange, and then purples and other reds and many blues and many greens, like 4 greens and more in orange and earth colors and browns, and it's a lot of different colors and I don't use that many of them. It makes my art look too disjointed when I use way too many colors. So this is what I'm down to. I have my yellows over here that I always use. It's like an earthy yellow and then a bright glowy yellow. That's the word that I use, glowy. Then this is the one I knew. I just got this paint. It's a Pearl Crimson. It's more of a deep red that goes to like a faded pink. It's less pink, it's less bright pink than the quinacridone red that I was using. Then I come over here and I still use that purple. It's one of my favorite colors. Perylene colors I love, and I use that perylene violet all the time in just about everything I do. I do still have 3 blues. Those are my favorite color blues. I'll say it's possible that I would change this one out for a phthalo blue green shade, but most of the time I don't. I like to use this. I also have some other phthalo turquoise and things like that, but then the Mine Blue Genuine there, and then the Mine Dark Blue. Those are another 2 of my favorite blues. I absolutely love them. They're the perfect shade for me. Then I use the Perylene Green. Now this is a different for me because I'm just using one green here. But with all the blues and yellows here, I can tune this however I want or create total new shades of that color. It just doesn't matter. So I just include one convenience green because that's my favorite green ever in existence. The Perylene Green, I love it. And then I go ahead and you see this Indian red here. It's more of an earthy. If I put it next to that red, it looks brown, but if I put it next to this brown, it looks more red. But then if I put this one next to this brown, this looks more red. So there's just different earth tones. I use a lot of earth tones in what I do. And then of course the Payne's Blue Gray is a mainstay on my palette. I use it as a black. You can almost get that black color if you look along that top rim. If you concentrate it enough, you can get that blackness from it. And that's what I like to do. But it looks like a natural black because it has that blue tint to it. So that's why I use that and not just regular black. And then I go ahead and use this here, which is the M-Gram titanium white gouache that I put in every palette, because then all of these colors become gouache if I want them to be. Just mix them in a little bit and I can add different amounts of each one to make it either more solid of a color, more pale. It just, however I want to do it, I can do it, and that's what I'd use. So I'm going to try this new palette out for the first time right here. And I also found this, I haven't used this paper probably 7-8 years. This is the Canson Moulin de Roy. I don't even think they make it anymore. This used to be one of my favorite papers. I used to use it all the time. I don't remember how it holds up to layers and the things that I do. Like I said, I just found it. It's been sitting on my shelf, but I must have packed it years ago, left it with all my stuff. I put it out on my shelf, but I just never picked it up. Then I was going through some old stuff the other day, and I was going through what I had, and I said, wait a minute, I have this paper. I forgot I even had it. I've been looking for it everywhere online. I can't find it on Amazon. I don't think it's on Dick Blick anymore. It might be somewhere. I'm sure it is. I'm sure someone can get this paper. But right now, this is the last 2 sheets I have. But I'm going to do some art on here with my new palette and just see how this holds up too. We'll see how this all goes. It's probably going to be a disaster. It will unfold like everything else that I do in my art and just be a surprise if it's actually good or not. Alright, we'll get right into it. Now, I usually go smaller, but I wanted to go with a full 9x12 sheet this time. I usually do the smaller, like 6x9 or something. I want to do the full sheet this time, and normally, I know I just talk about splashing color on the page, but I had a very precise composition in mind in this one. I don't usually do that. Usually I just go with whatever I think at the time, and I say, okay, it needs to go a little bit more this way, a little bit more that way. But in this one, I was looking at it and saying, I think I know how I want it to be formed, the shape that I want. I added a couple little different things. But this time, I did it that way. When I did this, I also didn't know how much detail I wanted to add. So to make it easier for someone to complete just starting out, I just did the very basics of it. I didn't add a lot of detail to each little section. I just added the detail that I thought was necessary to complete what I wanted to complete. And then anyone can do something like this. Anyone can follow along and do whatever they want in any kind of shape, but do this with this kind of the scheme behind it, where you're just not putting in every little detail like you normally do, but you're just putting in the broader shapes, and that's really all you're adding to it. And then you can always go back later. If you don't think it's good enough, you can go back later and add the detail. The thing is, though, I find that what people do is they get all the shapes out, and then what they do is they start to put in some detail, and they don't know what to put in each section. So unless they're doing like a uniform pattern in each section or something like that, but they say, oh, well, I put this over here, but I don't know what I want to put in this section, or what do I put in this section? And this one is going to have a lot of sections, so it's a little bit more difficult if that's what you're going to do. So I just show you it's okay to just do the basic forms and shapes and leave most of the texture to the paint. Just leave it alone and just put in the darker areas where I need to, a little bit of contrast. And you'll see me do that. First I'll do all the outlining, and then I will go back and I'll add a little bit more of the contrasty areas in there, and maybe round some of the corners of some of the straight lines and just give it a little bit more. I also didn't want to use too many colors on this one, so I wanted to use that new color, that Pearl Crimson that I have. And I also wanted to use the color in there that I haven't used in about a year, and that's that dark Mayan blue. Now that color, these are all Daniel Smith colors, by the way, but that color is just a great color. I love when I just have that darker blue as my only blue on the scene, and I've done that many times before, but I just really enjoy that, and I didn't want to put too much into this as far as color goes, so I put some of that red, some of that blue, and then of course I put some of the violet, I put some of the Pimentite Genuine. I did a little bit more of the earthier colors in there as well to make it blend a little bit nicer. All these colors fit very nicely together. I could have used the Mars yellow. I could have done that and put that in here. I didn't do that this time. I wanted to just keep it very simple and make it look, the reds look like they're all very similar colors, very similar shades, and they blend very well with the browns since they're a little bit more earthy color. So that worked out well, and then the blue is what really stands out. And it's just, in the end, you'll see I started out very light with what I was doing. I put in darker and darker color until I got to the point where I wanted to get. And then I just did all of my contrast and lines and things like that. You'll see how it goes. Now, you saw in the beginning when I was talking about colors, and I just want to talk about how I'm picking the colors for my palette. So I pick them based on the colors that I enjoy or based on the subject that I'm going to be painting. These colors in this palette can change at a moment's notice. The pans are just put in with little magnets. Right next to me is a drawer full of other pans with other paints in them. I could just swap them out as any time that I want to do that. But I want to just try and use these for a little while and see how these go. I do that once in a while. I'll just switch out a couple of colors, but ones that I'm familiar with usually. I don't usually have new colors, just one this time because I really wanted to get a darker red, but that was a little bit more muted in tone and not so bright and not leaning orange. I do not like those reds that lean orange. I like them more when they lean to the blue. But I wanted that to be the main red on the palette, and then the Perylene Violet. Now I have used the Perylene Violet as my main red because when you leave it by itself, it's always relative to what you put next to it. If I put the Perylene Violet down and did not put the Pearl Crimson down, you would understand that that's my red, and it would look red on the palette. Sorry, and it would look red on the painting. Because that's the color, that's what it would take on. It would take on the main red. So you would see that. Now with the Pearl Crimson added to it, it takes on kind of a mid-red, it's a cool red, not a mid-red. Takes on the cool red and kind of leans a little bit more into that blue territory, which puts a good buffer for the blue to come through then. Alright, now I'm just making up words and concepts. It doesn't even sound like I know what I'm talking about anymore. But getting back to the palette that I use, I always use that earthy yellow. I love that color, the Mars yellow, or you can use like a yellow ochre. I just use the Mars yellow because I get along with it a little better in my mixes and things like that. The New Gamboge I always have on a palette because it's just, if you put it behind something and just water it out a little bit, just dilute it a little bit, it glows. Whatever it's around, that thing glows, and I just love the way that looks. It could be anything from like a sunset to just highlighting something, and I've done that many times, and I enjoy how that looks. Now the Cerulean Blue Chromium, I've been using that for about, well, I'm going to say maybe a year or two. I don't think it's been quite 2 years, but maybe it's been 2 years. But that Cerulean Blue Chromium, I used to use the Phthalo Blue Green shade, and that used to be my primary blue on the palette. And you just have to dilute it a lot, water it out a lot to get that light blue. But the thing that I found is with the Cerulean Blue, I can always get the light, and if I want it to go darker, I can push it darker. Sometimes with the Phthalo Blue, it's such a bright color that you go to put it down, it's too strong, it's hard to dilute out, because then it stains the page a little bit, so it's difficult to work with. The Cerulean Blue Chromium just works a little bit better for the way that I use it. And then the Mayan Blue Genuine is my favorite blue shade, is my favorite tone of blue. And that's arguable, but for the most part it is, because of the way that it's a darker blue. It's a little bit more leaning to the green side than the Cerulean Blue Chromium or the Mayan Dark Blue. It's just a little bit more green than that. It's not green at all, but it leans to that side. And that's something that I like. I like the blues that lean a little green. That's just how I like them. But I like them to look true blue. I don't like them to go all the way green. The Mayan Dark Blue, I switched that one off, the Mayan Dark Blue, with the Blue Apatite Genuine. The Blue Apatite Genuine is a lot more green. It's almost like a blue-green color. But the Mayan Dark Blue, and you can, if you put them heavy concentration, you can get almost the same shade with them. But the Mayan Dark Blue is just a little bit less towards the green and a little bit more of that dark. It's a true blue, but it's just a little bit more dark and stormy, and I like that. So I just switch those two on and off my palette once in a while, just for a little bit of a change, that's all. Now I've mentioned the Perylene Green is my favorite green color on any palette that I've ever used. I like it more than Sap Green. I like it more than the Jadeite Genuine. It's my favorite color green, and I use it a lot in a lot of the work that I do. It's a little bit more muted, and because it's so dark, you can do different. You can put in a light wash with it if you want to, and it still looks dark. It still looks deep, and so I love that about it. And it is easy to tune any color you want. You can make it more like a sap green, more like an olive green. You can do whatever you want with it. You can just tune it a little bit. The Indian red, I do not like so much of the mash tone of that. When you put it on real thick and it's pure, it's not my favorite color. But once you just dilute it out a little bit, it turns into one of my favorite colors. It just has that, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like a pink, but it's a very, very dark pink. It's hard to explain. It picks up where the Pearl Crimson leaves off with the pinkish color, and the Indian red takes it right over. And then you can push it even further. You go to the Pyrrhotite Genuine, and that in the mash tone looks more brown, but it's like a reddish brown. But when you dilute that out, that can also pass for a pink. It's just a darker, it's more of a yellowish pink, so it gets a little bit more to the brown side. And then the sepia, of course, I used usually to tone things. I usually use, if I'm going to use the sepia straight, I'll just kind of dilute it a little bit, use it a little bit lighter. But otherwise, I blend it with other colors to kind of tune them, to change them, make them a little bit warmer. It's kind of, it's my toning color. That's what I use that for. And that's usually what I use all the darker colors for, is that. So the sepia and the Payne's Blue Gray I also use to tune a color maybe a little bit darker towards the cool side, whereas the sepia is a little bit darker towards the warm side. Now the Payne's Blue Gray, if you were to consider that as a blue, this is why I said before that the Mine Blue Genuine is arguably my favorite blue. If you were to consider the Payne's Blue Gray more of a dark blue, then that would be my favorite color blue ever. But I use it more like a gray. I use it more to be a gray, but it looks like a natural gray or a natural black. If you put the mass tone in there, put it in real heavy, it will look almost black. And I do that when you ever see me put the backgrounds in, and then I put those different shapes around in the dark black. That's actually the Payne's Blue Gray. That way when I put the gouache on top and I draw the white lines, there's a little hint of blue that lifts off in those white lines. It's a very good background color, and it helps to tune other colors that way. I love that color. That's always on every palette I use. So in the future, I want to make sure, a lot of you mentioned that you like doing the step-by-step, the real-time drawing, where I'm giving you advice while I'm drawing. I enjoy doing that too. As a matter of fact, it makes it easier to edit the video, so I really do enjoy doing it. It makes it a quicker experience, because then I can just do what I'm doing, explaining it. I don't have to go back after I've edited the video and then add all the wording to it. I can just do it all at once. So it helps me to do that, and I enjoy that. I just didn't know if you all enjoyed that. But several of you have said, yes, we would like to see more of that. And it seemed to do very well in the video when I did it, so I have no problem with that. I'm happy to hear it, and I will do some more of that in the future. That's definitely going to be coming. The only thing that's a little difficult with that is I've got to record some more music, because I only have certain songs, and that's all my music that you hear in those videos in the background. That's all mine. And I only have clips of music. They're ideas that were recorded for songs. They're not full-length songs or anything like that. So I've got to work on that and record a couple more things so I could do some more of those videos and put that in the background. So thumb up the video if you're going to give this a try. It's very simple. You put the color in how you want it, put a couple of harmonious colors together, and then just you outline everything. You put a little detail where you want to put it, round some edges and some corners so it brings out a little bit more contrast. And I love having that spread out to the edges. I just think it came out great. I really enjoyed how this one came out, and I really enjoyed doing these types of paintings. So I'll probably do more of these in the future as well. Now, I try not to end this with every video, but I'm going to add it here. But I just want to say, I would like to hear from you in the forums on the website. If you would like to go there, start a conversation, or add to one that's already existing, I would appreciate it. I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to maybe try and go in there and change a couple things and add a couple more conversations that maybe you would want to talk about. Hopefully those will be up by the time this video goes live. I'm hoping to do that. But if not, I would encourage you to please go ahead and stop in there and give me your opinion. So Here's a little bit more about that. If you would like to join our community, go to illustrationsbypete.com. You can come in, you can put your own artwork on the site and promote it. You can find some inspiration in the free reference photos. You can just use them however you want in your artwork. You do not need to credit me. Or you can come into the forums and talk to some people and maybe give some advice and maybe find a little bit of information that helps you. So come check us out. All right, that's about it for me. I'm going to go. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.